All right, so when I was just getting started in land investing, I had to get a little creative because I didn't have any money to buy land with. So in this episode, I'm gonna show you how to get creative, how to buy raw land with no money down. All right, no money, no problem. I'm gonna give you the baby steps of how to buy land with no money down, how to talk to sellers, what to say, and the script that I use to get like crazy land deals all the time with no money down. Hey guys, my name is Brent Bowers and I've done over 280 land deals. I have over 100 land deals paying us every single month. We call these notes. These are mortgages. This is land that we have sold to buyers where they're paying us every single month. I also have a house wholesaling business and we buy houses and fix them up and flip them to homeowners that are looking for a beautiful home to buy. In this episode, I'm gonna talk to you about buying raw land with no money down. And then this is almost a mindset shift. You gotta change your mindset shift because a lot of people, when I tell them about this, they don't believe it's even possible. Like, who would give me their land with no money down? Well, I'm gonna show you several tricks and techniques, but I want you to start thinking about the mindset shift. You gotta believe this is possible because it's totally doable. All right, first we gotta talk about some simple things of, how are we gonna find this land? We gotta pick an area and then we gotta pick a list of landowners to talk to and communicate with. At the end of the day, if you're not talking to landowners, you're never gonna buy land whatsoever. You got to talk to landowners. But when you're talking to landowners, you gotta build rapport. How do you build rapport with integrity? And it's an art. I wish it was a science. I wish I can give you the exact ways to build rapport. And everyone talks about it in sales books and all these things, but building rapport is like with integrity is making sure that your seller or the person you're communicating with, feels seen, heard, and understood. I'll say that again, seen, heard, and understood. We always feel good when we feel like someone's actually listening to us. We call it level 5 listening. They're actually seeing what we're saying, we're hearing what they're saying, and we're understanding. And a lot of times that's just by repeating exactly what they've just said, not bringing up a story of when that happened to you. For example, like for instance, someone's telling you about, oh my gosh, I've got all these bills and my dog just died and my car broke down. And then you go and start telling a story about how, oh man, yeah, that happened to me in 2007. No, it's not about you. It's about your seller or the person that you're communicating with on the other end and say, man, that must be so tough. Like, how can I help you out? How can I get you through this? That sounds really, really rough. Like actually hearing what they said and saying it out loud. That way they hear that you've heard them. So it's really a fine art, and it's not something that you pick up overnight. It's actually just, we call it level 5 listening. It's not about thinking what you're gonna say next. It's about feeling the pain and actually internalizing it and trying to come up with a solution for the person you're talking to. That is the best way to create rapport with the seller. And you're probably thinking, man, I thought we were talking about like how to buy land with no money down. Well, you're never gonna buy land with no money down if you have not created a great rapport with your seller, because you're about to offer something to them. It's going to be a huge load to drop in their lap, and you've got to have, high levels of rapport. They got to make sure, that seller has to make sure that you as the buyer care what they're saying, are hearing what they're saying, and understand what they're saying before they're going to be willing to take your no money down deal. All right. So little recap, I talked about finding the land, finding the sellers, and creating rapport with them. Now it's time to talk to them. What exactly do you say after you create this deep rapport, this rapport with integrity? They know that you've seen them, you've heard them, and you understand what they're saying. Now I like to use my script, and I'll offer you this script. I'm gonna give you this as a free gift at the end of this episode. But the first thing is, when they're calling you, like you sent them a postcard, or you sent them a letter, or maybe you're reaching out to them, it's a for sale by owner. It's as simple as saying, hey Jim, it's Brent, I was calling you about the land, or I was getting back to you about the land. Can you tell me a little bit about the land? And then next, I wanna pull away a little bit. It's, hey, it sounds like I've caught you in the middle of something, or you might not be ready to speak to me right now. Is there a better time to call, or is this time okay? And I give you this in the script, and a lot of people are not willing to pull away after they've built rapport. I'm telling you, it's way easier to pull a rope than to push a rope. You want the seller to almost kind of come towards you at this point, because they need to talk you into why you need to buy their land. So, hey, it sounds like I might have caught you in the middle of something. Is this still a good time to talk about the land? Next is, can you tell me a little bit about the land? And this is where you want to take notes, and this is where you want to hear about the land. And then after they tell you, then you ask like, hey, Miss Jenkins, or whatever, It sounds like it's a great piece of property. Why would you consider selling this? And you want to sound a little perplexed or a little confused. And that's when they tell you literally, really the juicy details of why they're considering selling. Well, I inherited it, or my ex-husband bought it, and I'm just that's where they get into even more of the pain, why they're looking to getting rid of this property or land or house. Next is, what do you think the land is worth? This is powerful because a lot of times they'll tell you what's just sold down the road or they have no clue. This is very powerful. And then you want to know how they figured out, where did they come up with that number? How did they figure it out? And a lot of times they'll just tell you, but if they don't, ask them, how did you come up with that number? Because that's going to give you a lot of details. All right, and here's the best question you can ask. If I can close in the next 30 days, I cover everything, what is the least you can take for the property? And that's where you got to kind of hush up and listen. I don't care if it takes 2 minutes for that seller to say something, you've got to be quiet. If you're on the phone, mute your phone. If you're standing there with them, I wouldn't recommend putting your hands over your mouth, but think I'm putting my hands over my mouth right now so I don't say a single word. And be quiet and wait for the comment. And whatever they say, I want you to sound a little perplexed, confused, but with empathy and say, is that the least you can go? And be sincere about it and don't say another word, because a lot of times this is where they come down even lower. This is where they show their true motivation if they want to sell that land or not. All right, and this is where you want to pull away. You figured out what they're willing to take, and I want you to, it's going to be so hard to do this. This is where you're pulling away again and say, Mr. Seller or Mrs. Seller, let me see if I can do this. Is it okay if I call you back in about 45 minutes? Because you want them to feel your pain too. You've shown them high levels of rapport. You've listened to them. They've done most of the talking. You've hardly talked at all here. And you've got to figure out and make sure that this is a good deal for you. Make sure you're not putting yourself into a predicament. So I want you to schedule another call back within about 30 minutes, 45 minutes. I wouldn't let it go longer than a day. All right, so it's time to call the seller back. You're going to call them exactly, if you said 2 o'clock, I want you calling them 2 o'clock on the dot. And I want you to reiterate it. Hey, Mr. Seller, is this still a good time? You got to verify it's still a good time for them. Yeah, it's perfect time. So Mr. Seller, you mentioned $85,000. I'm not saying I can pay that, but if I were to be able to pay that $85,000, would you be willing to spread that out over payments? And the seller will oftentimes ask, what do you mean by that? Well, let's say, Mr. Seller, oftentimes I'm able to buy land from people if they're willing to hold the financing and spread their profit out over a couple years or a few years. That way they're not having to pay as much taxes right off the bat. And I'm trying to always keep the benefits of them selling their land, them saving money on taxes, or at least spreading it out over time, but I'm not committing yet either. So a lot of times they don't understand how that works. So you've got to be very versed to be able to explain, Mr. Seller, I would be paying you over a certain amount of months. If I were to do that, if I were to pay you a payment each month, what would you like to see coming in each month for that payment? And this is where you let them, once again, give you the number. It might be $100, it might be $500, it might be $900. And sometimes sellers will mess around with you and say, I want $3,000 a month. Depending on the land, that might be doable. But you see where they're at. You always want to see where they're at, because at the end of the day, you're solving their challenges. You're solving their problem. It's not about you. It's about you figuring out how to solve the problem. At the end of the day, buying land at zero money down is about solving a seller's problem. You're not going to get a no money down deal from a seller that's not motivated. From a seller that's got some beachfront land that they just want a big bag of cash for, if they're not motivated, they're not going to talk to you. You're never going to get this deal. So you got to put in your mind, once again, that mindset shift that you're going to have to talk to a lot of people about this. 99 out of 100 people are not going to need your seller financing deal. They're not going to be motivated enough to give you the deal of the lifetime. But a coach of mine, Dolph DeRue, with the Rich Dad Poor Dad, he wrote a book for Robert Kiyosaki, and he says, Dolph DeRue says this. He said, the deal of the lifetime comes around once a week, as long as you're looking for it. All right, so the seller's still asking questions, you're answering it, and here's one thing you need to make clear to the seller. Look, Mr. Seller, I'm gonna buy this land, I'm gonna improve it, I'm gonna mow it, I'm gonna trim the trees, I'm gonna install a culvert and a driveway, and if for any reason I were to not pay for this land, Mr. Seller, you actually can have it right back. The title company will set that up for you with a deed of trust and a promissory note that protects you, that says if I stop paying for this land, you can have it back. This is a key point here. Have, not take. You want to make sure this is going to be easy for the seller, because the seller doesn't want to have anything hard. It needs to be as simple as possible for the seller, like a no-brainer for them. That's when you figure out what payments they'll take, then you start working on interest rate. Before I talk about that, I want you to definitely subscribe to this channel. I'm coming out with ways all the time, 5 days a week, talking about how to buy and sell land, how to sell your land fast, and other videos, all these things. I'm the only guy on the internet, only guy on YouTube talking about how to invest in land and make a profit for you. All right, so seller might want some interest. Be prepared to pay interest for this, like in a higher payment. If they're gonna take no money down, you're probably gonna have to do a pretty high payment or pay an interest rate. But let's just say they want $3 or $4 or $5 or $10,000 down. Guys, there's credit cards out there that will give you cash advances. I've had to do it in the past. I've had to go to my mother-in-law and get funds from her. You know, literally, like, not everyone has a mother-in-law that will loan them money, but you might have a friend or a family member. No money down means no money out of your pocket. It doesn't have to be no money down to the seller. So get creative with it. There's a million ways to skin this cat. You're gonna have to do multiple offers. You're gonna have to talk to multiple people. And guys, as you know, the real estate market is absolutely exploding. I've got a tried and true method. I've purchased over 280 parcels of land over the last 6 years. I've got a tried and true method to buy this land at crazy maximum discounts and sell this stuff in your sleep. If you're interested in getting started and looking to see if this would be a business for you to change your financial freedom, your time freedom, or maybe you just want to quit that terrible job, fire your boss, head over to thelandsharks.com. The link is below in the description. That's thelandsharks.com. Fill out the form, schedule a call, and I'd be honored to coach you.